Our kiddos are with us today since there's no RE in the summer, so they are welcome to play and giggle and make noise because we're so happy to hear their noises. It reminds us our church is alive. There was a little grabby going on up in front. I like that word. And no one admitted to cutting hair in our discussions up there. So. Well, I have a really important topic to talk to you about today. It's bumper stickers. I have a fridge in my basement, and it's covered in bumper stickers. I'm now moving on to the sides, There's someone, it seems, in every town that has one of those cars that's covered in all the bumper stickers, and they often lean a little bananas, right? If they have there's a certain number that's acceptable, and then after that, you're into a whole nother realm. And I didn't want to be known as that person, so I put them on my fridge. Now, I love them, and I stop and read them, and there's always kind of part of me that's always kind of looking for what the next best one is. And some people pick them out for me and give them to me. So I look at a few every time I grab a soda or need, an extra chicken or something out of the freezer. And it's hard to pick a favorite. And perhaps if I was less of a Detroit girl, I would plaster them out everywhere, but, I'm trying to preserve the paint. Or maybe someday if I have an office for more than a year or two, I'll put them all over my office door. There's some favorites that I have, like gardening is cheaper than therapy and you get tomatoes. Science, it's the cure for bull. Of course, there's the Ladies Sewing Circle and Terror Society. And a lot of people think that sounds funny, but it was actually true that in quilts, people put messages. I see some of you nodding, right? For starting their own revolutions. And of course, well-behaved women seldom make history. So the last time we talked about the UU Common Read on repentance and repair, I shared 5 steps to making amends and repairing harm. And the whole first half of the book, the first, 2-3 chapters, are really focusing on what we can do to change our own behavior. And the second half of the book focuses more on how a group can help care, both for victims, whoever's been hurt, or it also discusses the kind of harm that an organization could take responsibility for, or how to also help mentor someone who's done something hurtful and keep them in the community. It has really good tips on how to master this. And I want you to take just a moment, and think. You can write it down if you want, of a time that maybe you knew someone was hurting and you had absolutely no idea how to repair it, or you knew someone in a group messed something up, and maybe in the end everybody's hurt. Just think about that time, hold that with you. Now, I've told you once or twice about my father, who was a man who never minced words. And he was not the type that really worked to heal things. He would see a messed up thing happen, he'd complain about it. He was excellent to vent with, as long as it was not about him, right? It was about the man, whatever the man was. I like that Taylor Swift has a song about being the man, right? You don't know it, look it up. You want to be able to participate in good coffee hour talk at some point. At the end of my father's sessions, he might conclude with a famous saying for another bumper sticker. It might say, blank happens, right? Poop happens, right? And then he'd crack another beer and throw it back and tell everyone to have a drink. He used to like to say, people ask me why I drink, and I ask, why don't I drink more? Now, you can imagine someone who grows up with this atmosphere and this person might decide there's another way to look at things and become a UU minister someday. I'm going to say something that might be hard to hold, and I think you're ready for it. Cultures that are seeped in being nice often don't discuss things that are hard. Nice becomes a code word for we don't talk about that, right? We're being nice. When someone in a community has something unseemly happen, the preferred action often in those nice cultures is to ignore it. Or maybe they join my dad and crack a beer, or go eat a bag of cookies, or whatever that thing is. They might say, well, happens. Now, some of you have told me about times it happens in your families, or you've told me about times it happens where you work. In churches, people might gossip, but they wouldn't call it that. They'd say they're discussing things, right? And if it really is unsolvable, they might blame the boss, the mother, the father, the minister, who knows, the teacher. It can be the current one or the past one. It all works, right? I believe this happens not because people or a community are not wildly caring. I believe it happens because it's hard. And no one wants to mess up anything, and they worry so much about the perfection that they don't say or do anything, even if it's messy. If I could write you a permission slip, I would write you a slip that says, you have permission to be messy. Humans do this. Humans get hurt and sad. When we get hurt and sad, we lose our ability to access our frontal cortex, that thinking part of the brain. I do this, you do this, it happens to everyone. Blank happens. The fear of failure prevents action. The hope that a painful matter will go away will keep people from saying anything. So I believe that while there are plenty of bumper stickers that say blank or poop happens, right? There should also be a bumper sticker, I've never seen it, but I believe it should be out there, that says healing happens. Healing can happen as much as anything else if we want it to. And I think each of us are capable of contributing to healing. Healing one another, healing ourselves, healing this community, healing the hopeless, healing the harmed. Healing can happen as much as any other bumper sticker. Like I said, you don't have to be perfect. You have permission to be messy. It would be better to be messy and try. Now, hundreds of UU churches spent time studying this text this past year. I love that it brings up multiple sources of ours, right? And it's worthy of your time. Now, a couple weeks ago, we included a little card that Elizabeth Van Orden had designed for us that said the 5 steps Maimonides has. And I can't remember if we put it in the newsletter, but Lori, if you're listening, can we do that this week? So Maimonides' 5 steps, this Jewish philosopher, go like this. Number 1, naming and owning the harm. And these have to be done in order. Starting to change, giving it a try, being messy. Restitution and accepting consequences. You can't just say, well, I'm not going to listen to that anymore, right? That's another cutoff. After those happen, then you can apologize. I see some of the people in our classes nodding their heads. And then you truly have changed when you make different choices. Reverend Denise, why in one of your last sermons would you take more time to tell us about change and how to repair relationships? I think at heart I'm an interim minister. I come in to look at systems from the balcony. I step back and forth and look at places of pain and see what we can heal. And how to name the harm, that is the hidden part of the process. Sometimes I notice that people carry some hurt or anger about something in the past, something that keeps coming up. It's a story. Someone asked me the other day, they were doing their candidating week, and they said, any advice? And I said, just remember the stories they tell you this week. You'll have a whole new view on in a year, right? We all do that. We all have certain stories, but when you dig in, when you use that frontal cortex, they come up different. So is all to that you hear to the story what's been told for decades? Is that all there was? I know you all will be more successful as a community if we can love people up here. The logo team met this week, and they have a final recommendation to send to the board. And they were using words to describe the different options. Fresh and new, springy, cozy, loving, caring, warm. You'll have to wait and see what they recommended and if the board votes for it. But it's good. So if people know they can come here because harm happens everywhere, and when they get here, they can find comfort. And if they mess up while they're here, they will be asked to rehabilitate, right? They might be asked to do something different, to go learn something. Oftentimes, it's just us reminding ourselves how we can do that together, because we're always on a journey as Unitarian Universalists to improve. And we'll also be asked to heal. LGBTQ disability rights advocate Mia Mingus has a famous blog post called The 4 Parts of Accountability on her website, and she says, true accountability is not only apologizing, but it's understanding the impacts your actions can have and caused others, making amends or reparations to the harmed parties. But most importantly, true accountability is changing your behavior so the harm, the violence, the abuse does not happen again. Now, yesterday, I volunteered at Wisconsin's Pride Fest, which is an event that usually hosts about 75,000 people over the course of a couple days. And we've taught other UU ministers how to do this same process in other cities. And we call it Blessed at Pride Fest. And we have a menu. Do you remember those check sheets, like while you were out, so-and-so called, call them back, urgent? We have a blessing menu, right? And it says things like, what are the names you call the divine? It's got science, God, Allah, nature, the goddess. They check those off. Then they check off things that they would like healing help from. They check off what they'd like a blessing for. Something yesterday I noticed that is, as we blessed people, and we do this with all interfaith colleagues, so we have rabbis there, we have ministers of all different faiths, priestesses, you name it. We have all these different people there. People who requested a custom blessing over and over and over again would fill out this little form, and they wanted healing from rejection, emotional pain, and self-harm. Self-harm came up over and over and over. I took information from the items they shared on the sheet, and I told person after person, you are valuable. You are loved. I feel I'm standing in for whoever harmed them. Whoever should be telling them that while they may not understand, while they may not get it, they care about them. See, you can be messy when you're offering your care, when you're helping to name the pain. You can say, I can see you're in pain, I don't fully get it, I'm doing my best, I'm gonna go learn, right? I let people know that the actions did not warrant the pain that they now feel. They didn't deserve that, I try to say. I tell them they are strong, they are beautiful, and a gift. And it takes about 30 seconds, and the tears are always flowing. I just stand in for nature or science or God or love or the goddess that they feel comfortable naming. Whatever language they need, I just use it to remind them they are worthy. I tell them healing is possible. Healing happens. Some of you may remember 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, I know it was a long time, and I told you about the holly leaves, right? I told you on a holly bush, we always think of them as that pointy shape, right? But really, that's an adaptation that they have made because so many predator animals will try to eat the holly leaves that are actually smooth. And then over time, they make sure that the ones that are in reach of an animal are pointy, and at the top, there's still smooth ones. They normally would be round, but now they're pokey because some animal was like, yum. So if the tree adapts and grows pointy leaves to protect himself, do you know people who've done that? It happens all over nature. We see it in animals in shelters that have been given up, right? We see it in people. We see it in schools. We see it in churches. Ministers are trained to look at pokey spots in a system and try to figure out how to get the people to stop poking. Often pokey people don't even know they're pokey. They just accept it. Or for those of us around the pokey people, we might say, that's how they are. Sort of like saying, blank happens, right? I know that you would like to help, and I know that you care, and I know you are trying. And if I could offer you these 5 steps in my own words, they might go something like this. Naming and owning the harm might be like, wow, I messed up. I didn't even know what happened, but I know it wasn't right. Hey, can someone else help me sort this out, not the victim? Someone else might say to the victim, wow, that was awful. No one deserves to have that happen. Communities, churches, schools, friend groups could form like 2 groups. Okay, we're going to divide up. We want to help both these people stay in community, right? We're going to have one that goes to the harm doer or doers. And we're going to have one that goes to the one who is harmed. They can't overlap. Each group needs different tacks. All the groups are important to the community, says Rabbi Ruttenberg. Number 2, step, starting to change. Hey, I don't understand that. Can someone else recommend a good book where I can go learn about that? Because it's our responsibility to do the learning, right? It's not the person who got harmed's job to inform us. Or, I feel really yucky. I'm going to go talk to my therapist about it, might be step 2, right? Wow, I need to go take a class in that and learn more. I'm going to go read some stuff before I react to you. I can see this is new for me and I'm uncomfortable, but that's not your problem to solve. Or, hey, I'm going to go talk to my minister about that. Or, I don't see Jerome McDonald here, but he loves when I bring up that the new mission statement has curiosity in it. I wonder what they're telling me. I wonder if it's the whole story, you can ask yourself. Think of those family fights that have gone on for years. I wonder if that's really it. My mother was sitting across from me the other day and told me about something from like 60 years ago I'd never heard. Changed the whole story. I put in a step 2.5. I learned things. I need to act differently. What can I do now? I'm going to go ask friends to help me brainstorm. If you were in a nonprofit, you might say, I'm going to go read the policies now before deciding what should be done. We might cover this. Next step, restitution and accepting consequences. It might be, I messed up. It might be, we botched this. It might be, this is a real bummer. What can we do to make up for it? Is Rick Rayborn here? There he is. Let's do a SWOT analysis. What are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? What could we have done better? What did we learn? Or let's go help that person clean up. Or let's send them dinner and flowers and tell them we're sorry we see their pain. Apologies are not always done to the person who is harmed, right? Sometimes you have to say, hey, I'm ready to make amends. Are you ready to hear me? If not, that's cool. You won't hear from me again on this. And then you'll take that somewhere else. And the final step, make different choices. In this book, she guides us that one group may gather up to love the person who is harmed or the peoples. One group might go and look at ways they can keep the people who did harm into a new relationship. I might have told you before that there's a congregation in Seattle. A number of our congregations around the Seattle area pay rent to the tribe whose land they occupy. They send in rent payments. That's a way of making amends. It's a small part of their budget, but they feel that's one of the least things they could do to show they're actually in relationship with the tribe. Those are the kind of creative ideas that make true reparations, right? They rewrote policies in their churches so that it made more sense. Maybe something happens to a group and we could assign a few people. I could imagine this happening as a new extension of lay ministry, right? I think of one of the people I met yesterday. What if there was one group that taught the parents whose child was LGBTQ how to understand what was happening? It's really awesome when we get people into PFLAG, or some of you have done this in this community. You've gone and loved people up who are learning about that journey, right? And what if another group of people gathered to help the person coming out? Wouldn't that be amazing if each group was existing to help make some healing? That's a really little practical thing we could do, right? And sometimes it does. Sometimes we do that here. I think a great reparation that CCUU does is that we host the group on Wednesday night. What's it called? The trans youth group. Youth Outlook, yep. What a great way that we do that. Or we do that with some of the other repair and help groups like that. That's another great example. Those are ways to disrupt harm. We could invite the kid who's going through that, or the young adult, to go have coffee. We can stand up and disrupt groupthink. How we push one another to, quote, be nice when ignoring something is not nice at all. That's not helpful, but what if we said, hey, wait a minute, I just need to pause? That's not such a horrible thing to say, right? Just reach out in curiosity. So Rabbi Dana Ruttenberg says, addressing harm is possible only when we bravely face the gap between the story we tell and the one which we're the hero fighting the good fight, doing our best, behaving responsibly and appropriately in every context, and the reality of our actions. She advises we need to summon the courage to cross that bridge, that cognitively dissonant gulf. Face who we are, face the story a new way. Who we have been, even if it threatens the story of ourselves. It's the only way we can even begin to undertake any possible repair or harm that we've done, and to become the person who might do better next time. And that, in my opinion, is what's truly heroic. That would make a great bumper sticker.